Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the June 24th, 2020 meeting of the Rotterdam Town Board. Ms. Marco, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Christo? Oh, they're muted.
Here.
You said on
Here.
All right, Mr. Gittarelli?
Here.
Mrs. Miller Herrera?
Present.
Mr. Signor?
Present.
And Mr. Tomazone?
Okay, would you all please stand? And Diane, would you mind? Go ahead.
Did you say here? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, Steve.
I
Did
said
you say here? Okay, so 5 present. Thank you.
Okay, sorry. And could you please lead us in the pledge, Diane?
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag, to the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and to liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Okay. This evening, we're going to start with our public hearing. It's quite a lengthy read. Well, Ms. Marco, would you please read Public Hearing 1, Establishment of Extension Number 3 of Sewer District 7, Curry Road East and West District.
The proposed extension number 3 of Sewer District 7, Curry Road East and West, consists of all properties along Curry Road east of the Hamburg Street, Curry Road, Carmen Road traffic circle to the I-890 off-ramp and west of the same traffic circle to 400 Road. The boundaries of the proposed district extension are detailed and described in the map and Appendix A of the April 15th, 2020 map, plan, and report, Curry Road East and West Sanitary Sewer District 7, Extension 3. The proposed improvement shall collect wastewater from the proposed extension number 3 of Sewer District 7, Curry Road East and West, with the eastern portion, Curry Road East, extension number 3A, to begin just west of the I-890 off-ramp and flow by gravity to the pump station of extension 2 at the property currently occupied by the Super 8 Hotel. From here, the sanitary flows of extensions number 1 and 2 and Curry Road East will be pumped to the Hamburg Street Sewer District gravity main. The western portion, Curry Road West, extension number 3B, will flow through the proposed sewer from 400 Road and just west of the Route 7 and Route 146 traffic circle to a common manhole, and then to a pump station to be located on a proposed easement area on the apartment complex owned by Rotterdam Partners LP. From this pump station, wastewater will be conveyed via force main across an existing easement held by the town over the property owned by the St. Gabriel the Archangel Roman Catholic Church to the existing Hamburg Street gravity main. The sanitary flow will then join the Hamburg Street sewer system and ultimately flow to the city of Schenectady. The maximum proposed cost for this project is $3,719,000. This cost is the total of the 2 portions of Extension 3 East, Extension 3, number 3A, and West, Extension number 3B. The anticipated cost for the Curry Road East Extension number 3A portion is $1,047,000, and the anticipated cost for the Curry Road West Extension number 3B portion is $2,672,000. The town plans to bond the proposed project for 30 years at an estimated 3.5% interest rate. All districts annually are being charged operation and maintenance cost of $42, treatment cost of $248. The total annual debt service responsibility per EDU of the Curry Road East Extension number 3A Sewer District Extension is therefore the sum of the Curry Road East Extension number 3A component of debt retirement, the prorated share of debt retirement of the shared infrastructure with Carmen Road Extension number 2, as well as the prorated share of debt retirement associated with the Hamburg Street Sewer District 7, for a total of 1,434 EDU to the typical property. The total annual debt service responsibility per EDU of the Curry Road West Extension number 3B Sewer District Extension is therefore the sum of the Curry Road West Extension number 3B component of debt retirement, as well as the prorated share of debt retirement associated with the Hamburg Street Sewer District 7, or a total of 1,225 EDU to the typical property. There currently is one-time $35 sewer lateral inspection fee. The connection fees to connect to Sewer 7, as well as any current or future extension, have been waived for 5 years. But once expired, the connect fee shall be $500 sewer connection fee per dwelling unit and a $1,000 connection fee for commercial usage for properties within the established sewer district and connect to the collection system. Connection to the proposed district extension shall require the installation of a lateral by the property owner. The approval of the state comptroller is required for the establishment of the proposed sewer district extension, and the town resolution establishing the proposed district is subject to permissive referendum as provided by the New York State town law. The public presentation of the map, plan, and report in accordance with the New York State town law related to the creation of the proposed extension number 3 of Sewer District 7, Curry Road East and West District will occur again at this time. This map, plan, and report was filed with the town clerk on May 13th, 2020, and continues to be available for public inspection in the office of the Rotterdam town clerk by appointment. Due to the restrictions put in place pursuant to the executive law of the state of New York and in the public interest, it shall also be available on www.rotterdamny.org.
Okay, very good. Okay, do we have anyone for public comment on public hearing 1? And I see that we had 2 phone numbers here. One with the last 3 ending in 847 and the other ending in 634. Do either of you want to comment on public hearing 1? 847 or 634? Comment on public hearing 1? No, I guess not. Okay. All right. Okay. Let's see here. Just make sure that we don't have. There's 847. I don't see anyone else there. Just going to mute these phones again. Anyone want to be heard on public hearing 1 at this time? I've unmuted the phones. Anyone want to be heard on public hearing 1 at this time?
No.
Anyone like to be heard on public hearing 1 at this time? Okay, so I think that was definitive. All right, so we will move ahead to public comment privilege of the floor at this time. In public comment privilege of the floor, if you'd like to speak, please try to keep your comments to 4 minutes. What I will do is when you get to about 3 minutes, I'll raise my hand so that you know that you're at the 3-minute mark. And once I raise my hand a second time, that'll mean you're at the 4-minute mark. I'd ask that you please consolidate your comments or
Steve, can I just ask that you close the public hearing?
I apologize. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I just wanted, if you did.
I just said that because I apologize for that. So no one wanted to be heard on public hearing 1, so I'll declare public hearing 1 closed at this time. My apologies. Thank you very much.
No problem.
So public comment privilege of the floor. Anyone under public comment privilege of the floor at this time? Let me unmute those phones again. At 847 and 634. Anyone want to be heard on public comment privilege of the floor?
No.
Okay. All right. Let's move into our resolutions. Now here, what we're going to do is on the order 320, we have to vote on that after we vote on resolution 18220. So we're going to hold the order until after that, that resolution. I believe that's correct. Just looking for Kate to give me a thumbs up or thumbs down. She's giving me a head shake that's correct. All right, so we're good. So let's go on. Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I just noticed that Mr. Dodson is in the waiting room, and he may have been there during that privilege of the floor and whatnot.
Well, let's go back to that then. I don't know how to. Oh, here we are.
I admitted him, so.
Oh, good. Okay.
It'll take him a second to connect, though.
Okay. Okay, there we go. Mr. Dotson, if you can hear me, did you want to be heard on the public hearing or public comment privilege of the floor?
Yes, Mr. Thomasone.
What would you like to be heard under? We closed the public hearing. I apologize for that. Did you want to be heard under the public hearing?
Yes, and this is public hearing number 1, establishment extension number 3 of sewer district number 7.
You hold a moment, please, because I just need a point of order from our attorney to find out what the process is for that.
So we're going to reopen the hearing.
I can just do that without, okay. So let's do that. I'll reopen the hearing, public hearing 1. Go ahead, Mr. Johnson.
So yes, I would just like to know from the town board standpoint, as you guys know from the last meeting, this sewer district does exceed the state comptroller's limit threshold for a sewer district. You know, we had a nice conversation relative to notifications, and I think it was the board's opinion that, law says that you do not need to provide this notification, even though it is highly recommended that it be done. In addition to that, I guess the last, at least the last avenue that a taxpayer that's in this benefited district would have is the ability to petition relative to permissive referendum. And I believe that is an opportunity for them under this sewer district to petition the town for a referendum vote. Is that correct?
I'm sorry. Yes.
All right, Mr. Thomasone, are you saying that's correct?
Did you hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
Yes.
Okay, so the property owners do indeed in this district, effective tonight for the next 30 days, are allowed to do a petition?
It's contained within the public hearing notice. That language is here regarding the permissive referendum.
And there is no other notification going out to these benefited users?
Not that I'm aware of at this time, but we can certainly look at that.
Okay, I appreciate it. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, let me go back to make sure that we don't have anyone else here in the waiting room, and I don't see anyone else. Okay, so anyone else on public hearing 1 at this time? Anyone else like to be heard on public hearing 1 at this time? Anyone else?
Mr. Supervisor, I did want to not follow up, but so as far as the public notice, we did 3 ads in the Gazette, or 3 publications.
Publications were completed some time ago. Let me just go over to the.
Right, I know Kate mentioned that last time we were doing that, so we did do that, but we did not mail any letters directly to each resident, and I know we talked about this before, so no other time we have done that, and that's not required. Just the 3 ads we did was sufficient, or all that's mandated by the state, correct?
Ms.
That's
McDonald.
incorrect. One ad would have been sufficient, but instead you advertised for 3 consecutive days because of the state of emergency, just to give people extra notice. So to be clear, it only is required to be published for 1 day. There is no other form of service of process with respect to the creation of a district nor of a district extension.
So we could have sent a letter to each person if we wanted to as well then.
Well, we talked about this the last time, right? Because there is, at some point, there becomes an issue with disparate treatment when you treat people differently. So again, not a legal requirement, not something that's ever been promulgated by the New York State Legislature, not something that's contained within your code, but I would again just remind you that you have odd parts of your code that and some part wholly adopt parts of the state law. Sometimes it's up to date, sometimes it's adopted state laws from long ago. I mean, we repealed that recently, I think as recently as February of 2019 when you repealed your existing access to records code because it contained the FOIL law from, I think, the 1970s when I went back and looked at it. And so if there's other methods of service of process that as a town moving forward you wish to implement, I would highly suggest that you codify them.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anyone else like to be heard on public hearing 1 at this time? We do not have any additional participants. Anyone else like to be heard on public hearing 1 at this time? Anyone else like to be heard on public hearing 1 at this time? Okay, again, I'll declare public hearing 1 closed. And move to public comment privilege of the floor. Let's just keep in order here. Anyone want to be heard under public comment privilege of the floor? What I'm going to do is just unmute these phones again. So if you want to be heard, go ahead and please go ahead and speak up. Anyone else want to be heard on public hearing? Or excuse me, public comment privilege of the floor. Okay. All right. So now we'll go into resolution. Let me just double check here. Make sure I'm.
Supervisor Thomason, I'd like to speak.
Okay, go ahead. I did unmute you. I don't know if you saw that, so I didn't know. Go ahead.
Again, this is Jack Dodson, 1311 Cipriana Terrace. Just looking for some clarification. I think there's some confusion in the public relative to our water conservation requirement that's on right now. And, you know, I guess from my standpoint, we've had this conversation about source of supply and all that. And, you know, I do realize that we do have an excellent source of supply, not an issue. So from that standpoint, you know, I've read some articles in the paper talking about the barge canal and all that being low, and that's impacting our source of supply, which I believe is indeed not the case. We have plenty of source of supply. I believe the real issue for the water conservation that we're on right now comes back to our water storage in our community, realizing that our May Avenue tank, which is the largest tank that we have in the distribution system, is offline for painting. And, you know, unfortunately for us this year, we're in a semi-drought right here, which is not ideal having that tank offline. Is there a consideration by the town to actually look for additional storage in our community so that if we're in this situation again, that we have the capacity and storage in order to, you know, prevent us from having to go and not water lawns and reduce our water consumption during this mild drought, I'll call it.
So I've spoken about this on many different occasions. What I'll do is I'm going to wait until the end of the meeting and I will address all of that. I was planning to do that. So thank you for asking.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else on public comment privilege of the floor? Okay, let's move into the resolutions then. Resolution 17520.
The Town Board of the Town of Rotterdam hereby adopts policies and procedures in relation to the ongoing state of emergency stemming from the coronavirus COVID-19.
Okay, may I have a motion, please?
I'll move.
Motion by Mr. Christou. Is there a second, please?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Signor. Did I hear that right? I think. So we have a motion by Mr. Christou, a second by Mr. Signor. Anyone on the question? Okay, Ms. Marco, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Christou?
Yes.
Mr. Gittarelli?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera?
Yes.
Mr. Signor?
Yes.
And Mr. Thomasone?
Yes.
5 yes.
Okay, resolution 17520 passes. Resolution 17620.
Authorize payment of a stipend in the amount of $2,000 to the Comptroller of the Town of Rotterdam as received from the Schenectady County Intermunicipal Watershed Board for services rendered for the year 2020.
Okay, may I have a motion, please?
I'll make a motion.
I'll make the motion.
By Mr. Gittarelli, second by Mr. Christou.
Correct.
Yes. Okay, so we have a motion by Mr. Gittarelli, a second by Mr. Christou. Is there any
Yes.
other question? Okay, Ms. Marco, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Christou?
Yes.
Mr. Gittarelli?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera?
Yes.
Mr. Signor?
Yes.
And Mr. Thomasone?
Yes.
5 yes.
Okay, resolution 17620 passes. Resolution 17720.
Call for public hearing to be held on Wednesday, July 22nd, 2020 at 7 p.m. The public hearing is open to the public and persons may attend telephonically. Members of the public may listen to and/or speak at the public hearing by dialing 1-929-205-6099, then entering the conference ID number 867-0373-0307, followed by the phone or by the pound symbol. The public hearing will be held electronically via a video conference for the town board and a conference call for all members of the public for the following purpose: to amend Chapter 267 Water to repeal Section 267-9G of the Code of the Town of Rotterdam and to adopt a new Subpart G related to lawn sprinkling.
Okay, may I have a motion, please?
I'll move.
Motion by Mr. Christou. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Sorry.
Is that Steve?
Yeah, I may have beat Joe out just by a bit.
Okay. So we have a motion by Mr. Christou and a second by Mr. Signor. Anyone on the question?
Mr. Supervisor, is this part of what you were going to expound on?
Yeah, what I'm going to do is I'm going to expound a little bit on matters that I've brought up in the past regarding our water and rather than, I'm not going to address this all specifically tonight, but this particular amendment, what we'll do is, because we're still working through it, but we'll have the data to back us up when we're ready. Okay.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, we'll have plenty of time for that. So we have,
yes on this.
okay. So Ms. Marco, would you please call for the vote?
Mr. Christou,
Yes.
Mr. Gittarelli,
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera,
Yes.
Mr. Signor,
Yes.
Mr. Tomazone.
Yes.
5 yes.
Okay, thank you. 17720 passes. Resolution 17820.
Call for public hearing to be held on Wednesday, July 22nd, 2020 at 7 p.m. The public hearing is open to the public and persons may attend telephonically. Members of the public may listen to and/or speak at the public hearing by dialing 1-929-205-6099, then entering the conference ID number 867-0373-0307, followed by the pound symbol. The public hearing will be held electronically via a video conference for the town board and a conference call for all members of the public for the following purpose: to amend Chapter 244, solid waste, garbage, recycling, brush, grass and leaves, to add Subpart 1 to Section 244-12, non-recyclable waste, yard waste packaging, scavenging, to include a permit process limiting the usage of the town's compost transfer facility to the residents of the town of Rotterdam.
Okay, may I have a motion, please?
I'll
Mr.
move.
A motion by Mr. Christou, second by Mr. Gittarelli.
Now I was going to ask you to give us a little background on this. Since we don't have the background supporting documentation.
So
right?
so here, when we eliminated our brush and leaf permit fee through the process here a few years ago, what happened was, a couple years ago, what happened is that we also eliminated the section about permitting. So we need to re-engage that section in our code regarding the permit process, and also potentially have some language in there that affords someone, whether it's the supervisor, what I'm looking for anyway, the supervisor or the highway superintendent or head of Department of Public Works, some designee, if you will, to allow residents who had prior permits in prior years to just use those. Now, having said that, I did start a process with our office to find a way to just push this permitting process almost entirely electronically. So we're still working through that, but we have to adopt a permitting process. We don't have one in our code at this time.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So we have a motion by Mr. Christou and a second by Mr. Gittarelli. Is there anyone else on the question for 17820? Okay, Ms. Marco, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Christou,
Yes.
Mr. Gittarelli,
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera,
Yes.
Mr. Signor,
Yes.
and Mr. Tomazone.
Yes.
5 yes.
Resolution 17820 passes. Resolution 17920.
Call for public hearing to be held on Wednesday, July 22nd, 2020 at 7 p.m. The public hearing is open to the public and persons may attend telephonically. Members of the public may listen to and/or speak at the public hearing by dialing 1-929-205-6099, then entering the conference ID number 867-0373-0307, followed by the pound symbol. The public hearing will be held electronically via a video conference for the town board and a conference call for all members of the public for the following purpose: to create Chapter 224 real property tax exemptions, to add Subpart A to extend the veterans exemption to Gold Star parents, and Subpart B to extend the veterans exemption to veterans with an existing exemption when the purchase of a home in Rotterdam during the same fiscal year.
Okay, so this is for real property tax law exemptions, as Ms. Marco stated. Does anyone have a question, or would Ms. Miller-Herrera want to speak to this, or Ms. McGurl? I know Ms. Miller-Herrera was.
Did we do the motion yet, Mr. Supervisor?
No, but I want to know if someone wants to speak to it first. You want to? Samantha?
Yeah, I can just briefly, it came to my attention recently that a person who has a veteran's exemption on their home, if they sell and then purchase a new home within the same municipality, there is a provision that if we adopt a local law, they can roll that veteran's exemption to the new home without waiting until the filing time in March for when you would normally send in that application. And I thought with our veterans community being so strong that was important. And it also may encourage veterans who are thinking about, leaving homes that are require maintenance and going to condos, things like that, to stay within our municipality, because they are such a huge wealth of, knowledge and such a good source of community for us. So this would also extend those exemption options to Gold Star families, Gold Star parents, those who have lost a child in combat. So it's something I felt was important, and once I knew it was available, Ms. McGurl jumped right on drafting and pulling together all the information for us.
Okay, so do we have a motion for 17920?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Mr. Christou. Is there a second, please?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Signor. Okay, anyone else on the question? I jumped ahead on that one, Evan, because we don't have the backup for it. I wanted it to be clear even before we jump to vote on it. Okay, so we have a motion by Mr. Christou, a second by Mr. Signor. Ms. Marco, would you call the roll for 17920?
Mr. Christou?
Yes.
Mr. Gittarelli?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller-Herrera?
Yes.
Mr. Signor?
Yes.
And Mr. Thomason?
Yes.
5 yes.
So 17920 passes. Resolution 18020?
The Town Board of the Town of Rotterdam hereby approves the application submitted by Gary D. Coco to allow for a proposed two-lot subdivision on a plus or minus 24,834 square foot parcel located in the Aquifer Overlay District on tax map number 20.5-7-46.1, 5 Lock Street, Rotterdam Junction, New York, 12150. Applicant is requesting a two-lot subdivision. Lot 1 equals plus or minus 12,342 square feet with proposed single-family residence, and Lot 2 equals plus or minus 12,492 square feet with proposed single-family residence. Public hearing was called for at the Town Board meeting of May 27th, 2020. Public hearing was held at the Town Board meeting of June 10th, 2020.
Okay, may I have a motion, please?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Mr. Christou. Is there a second, please?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Gittarelli. Okay, anyone on the question?
Mr. Supervisor, I want to say the extended resolution, I think we have two 17920s in a row, if that matters.
Yeah,
the expanded, the page, that's the full page.
Let me just go there.
17920, 17920.
We'll get that renumbered.
Yeah, just a note. I figured I'd forget if I didn't mention it now.
But the short form is okay, correct?
Yes.
I think
Okay.
it is, yeah.
Long form is just,
Yes.
push a number up, number forward. Short form.
It's fixed on the one I'm doing backup for right now.
Okay, good. Thank you. Okay, so we have a motion by Mr. Christou and a second by Mr. Gittarelli. Anyone else on the question? Okay, Ms. Marco, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Christou?
Yes.
Mr. Gittarelli?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller-Herrera?
Yes.
Mr. Signor?
Yes.
And Mr. Thomason?
Yes.
5 yes.
The resolution 180-20 passes. Resolution 181-20.
Adopt local law number 8 of the year 2020 for the following purpose: to amend Chapter 130 Fire and Fire Prevention to repeal sections of the code of the town of Rotterdam rendered obsolete by the Uniform Fire Prevention and Building Code of the state of New York. Public hearing was called for at the town board meeting May 27th, 2020. Public hearing was held at the town board meeting of June 10th, 2020.
Okay, may I have a motion, please?
I'll move.
Motion by Mr. Christou. Is there a second, please?
A second.
Second by Mr. Guidarelli. Okay, anyone on the question? Okay, Ms. Marco, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Christou?
Yes.
Mr. Guidarelli?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera?
Yes.
Mr. Signor?
yes,
And Mr. Thomasone?
Yes.
5 yes.
The resolution 181-20 passes. Resolution 182-20.
Adopt the negative declaration dated June 24th, 2020, as prepared by the town planner relating to the proposed extension number 3 of Sewer District 7, Curry Road East and West District. Authorize the town supervisor of the town of Rotterdam to sign the negative declaration on behalf of the town board, and authorizes the town planner to distribute all documents as necessary to comply with 6 NYCRR Part 617.12 State Environmental Quality Review.
Okay, may I have a motion, please?
I'll move.
Motion by Mr. Christou. Is there a second, please?
I'll second.
Okay, second by Mr. Signor. Anyone on the question? Okay, Ms. Marco, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Christou?
Yes.
Mr. Guidarelli?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera?
Yes.
Mr. Signor?
Yes,
Mr. Thomasone?
Yes.
5 yes.
The resolution 182-20 passes. Now, we're going to go to order 320. Ms. Marco, would you read the order, please?
Oh, okay, let me grab it.
Yes, okay.
Approve the creation of the proposed extension number 3 of Sewer District 7, Curry Road East and West District, in accordance with Town Law Article 12-A. Public hearing was called for at the town board meeting of June 10th, 2020. Public hearing held at the town board meeting of June 24th, 2020.
Okay, may I have a motion, please, for the order 320?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Mr. Christou. Second, please.
I'll second.
Okay, second by Ms. Miller Herrera. Okay, anyone on the question on the order? Any discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Supervisor, so I just want to be clear. So when tonight's meeting is done, the benefiters of this district have 30 days for permissive referendum if they choose to do so. I guess if I question that right. So can you just explain quick permissive referendum,
I'm going to
how
have
that works?
I'm going to have our attorney give a brief dissertation on that. Ms. McGraw, would you please?
Not really a quick process.
I know it's not.
Yeah. Permissive referendum is a mechanism that is attached to the election law that allows people to circulate a petition in accordance with the election law, which must include a jurat. You may ask the town clerk to cause a petition to be created, and as a result, you must obtain a specific number based upon the level of ownership within the district in order to then subsequently file with the town clerk, who subsequently forwards that information to the Board of Elections, should it be a valid petition. The validation of the petition is run through the town clerk by statute. And obviously, you know, we check to see whether or not the petition is valid. And if it is, then it's cause to be added to the ballot for people who are eligible to vote on it within the district in the election in November. So it's an actual part of the elective process, essentially.
Okay. And then it's a certain percentage for the initial petition, and then it's just the majority after that.
That's correct, yeah. I mean, but I would just focus that it's based on ownership, you know, so.
Yeah, yes.
Mhm.
So again, to my question, so there's a 30-day allowance for this to happen after tonight.
Right, that's the statutory period.
Yes, okay, thank you.
Okay, anyone else with a question on the order? Okay, Ms. Marco, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Christo,
Yes.
Mr. Gitterelli,
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera,
Yes.
Mr. Signor,
Yes.
and Mr. Thomasone.
Yes.
5 yes.
Okay, the order of 320 is passed. Resolution 18320.
Extend the award of bid opened on Thursday, March 28th, 2019 to Harmony Tree Service LLC, 350 Mariva Road, Schenectady, New York, 12306, for tree cutting and removal services for the town of Rotterdam for the year 2020 through 2021, upon mutual consent extending the pricing for 2019.
Okay, may I have a motion, please?
I'll move.
Motion by Mr. Christo. Is there a second, please?
I'll second.
Okay, second by Mr. Gitterelli. I honestly, I have a question on this one. Hopefully it won't be the first time I ever have a question. Right, Steve? So anyway, I'm curious because we had a resolution here to put this out to bid. And if memory serves me right, we had a recommendation in the past to do the same kind of thing, if you will, of extending our award for paving, and we didn't do that. We put it out to bid, and the prices came in much lower. So I am curious as to how this went from call for bids to be electronically open to the extension of an award.
Mr. Supervisor, if I can address that, in discussion with board members, individually with board members, we were in discussing with the highway committee people. There was an understanding that there's kind of like two parts to this. One part is the crane, need for their crane, and the other part was for the tree removal. We've used Harmony over the last few years for tree removal. Their service seems to be good. There was some documentation, if I remember correctly, and council can correct me if I'm wrong, there was some documentation that didn't seem to be complete to do the RFP. So I had made the recommendation that since the tree cutting part is not the issue, that we go ahead and renew the contract for the tree cutting part with Harmony. And if the highway superintendent sees fit to continue on a bid necessity for the crane, he could do that, or he could use the other company with the crane on an emergency basis, which seems to me is the only time it's really needed.
So why the extension to? I mean, I understand if that's the board's desire for 2020, but why 2021? Why are we adding 2021 to this?
Well, we're in 2020 to 2021, isn't it? It's a one-year extension, correct?
I can answer that question. You awarded the bid previously. Resolution number 114 of 2019 was awarded in April. And so you didn't award it in January. It ran April to April. So you awarded in 2019 until April, and you've been without contract for service essentially since April.
So this contract extended would last through April of 2021.
Correct.
Just to make sure that everyone knows that.
It wouldn't be a one-year extension stemming from this date. It would have to stem from the previous expiration.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. Okay. So we have anyone else on the question? We have a motion by Mr. Christo and a second by Mr. Gitterelli. Okay, Ms. Mark, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Christo,
Yes.
Mr. Gitterelli,
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera,
Yes.
Mr. Signor,
Yes.
and Mr. Thomasone.
Yes.
5 yes.
Okay, resolution 18320 passes. Resolution 18420.
Call for bids to be electronically opened on Wednesday, September 9th, 2020 at 2 p.m. and an official report to be subsequently posted to the Empire State Purchasing Group on BidNet, http://www.bidnetdirect.com/Town of Rotterdam by the close of the business of the same day for Sewer District 7 Extension 2 Carmen Road.
Okay, may I have a motion, please?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Mr. Christou. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Okay, second by Mr. Signor. Anyone on the question? Okay, Ms. Marco, please call the roll.
Mr. Christou,
Yes.
Mr. Gitterelli,
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera,
Yes.
Mr. Signor,
Yes.
and Mr. Tomazone.
Yes.
5 yes.
Resolution 184-20 passes. Now we have consent agenda resolutions 185 through 192-20. Is there a motion, please?
Mr. Supervisor, I make a motion to vote on the consent agenda from motions number 180, resolutions number 185, 20, 186, 20, 187, 20, 188, 20, 189, 20, 190, 20, 191, 20, and 192, 20.
Okay, so we have a motion by Mr. Christou for resolutions 185 through 192-20. Is there a second, please?
Mr. Supervisor, I wanted to ask, since we really just got the final agenda right before the meeting started, and these are consent items, can you give us a quick rundown on these, please?
Yes, I plan to. So 185-20 is for an agreement. Peter Comenza, our town planner. Let me back up. We're going through our comprehensive plan update. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. So we're going through our comprehensive plan update, and the state came in, and the Capital District Transportation Committee that they wanted to pursue a feasibility, and I should say feasibility, a study of trucking and uses along I-88, I-90, Route 7. So we signed on to that and said, yes, please. So we have a small match for the entire grant and study that we'll be conducting here in that corridor. Something that's really necessary for our comprehensive plan, particularly as we develop the comprehensive plan and we consider the potential of rezoning and the appropriate uses in that corridor and beyond, because whatever happens there affects the whole town, particularly to Five Corners and beyond. So we need to make sure that we do that right. A couple other resolutions have to do with having Chase & Company assist us with on-call emergency services. So that's no different than some of the other things that we're doing. Yeah. That's for redundancy.
And Mr. Supervisor, I'm probably good on the other ones. That was the only one really.
Okay. Well, I'll just mention one. I'll mention one more. So because I think this is, when we're spending this much money, I think it's worthwhile to discuss it or to at least let the public know, obviously. So we're going to expend about $269,000 to purchase
that's right.
To purchase a new Broom Bear single-engine sweeper with dual side brooms. These sweepers are needed not just for just because we want to see our streets clean, but we need them for stormwater management and everything else. And obviously, cleaning up the roads helps in many different ways for maintenance, but also for safety, obviously. And the other resolutions just have to do with gasoline expenditures, diesel expenditures, and a couple of budget moves and approval of our town minutes. So that's in a nutshell. So we have resolutions 185 through 192-20 with a motion by Mr. Christou. Is there a second? Yes. Mr. Gitterelli, did you seconded? Yeah.
No, I actually did not.
Okay. Who would second it?
I can.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I'll second it.
There we go. We have a second. All right. Anyone else on the question for the consent items? Okay. Ms. Mark, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Christou,
Yes.
Mr. Gitterelli,
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera,
Yes.
Mr. Signor,
Yes.
Mr. Tomazone.
Yes.
5 yes.
Okay. Before I speak about the water, does anyone have anything that they'd like to bring up under committee reports and miscellaneous this evening?
Well, the Highway Committee is happy that we were able to buy a street sweeper. Is Larry Lamore on the line right now?
I think this is him. So
He's muted.
I'm going to mute this call. I think.
Yes, I'm still here.
Go ahead. Steve just wants to hear attaboy on this.
I just want to tell you we're that much closer, Larry. Those 7:30 morning meetings are paying off.
And I'd like to mention for everyone's credit that the funds that are being used to pay for this are coming from money that we set aside the past couple of years and from budgeted funds in our current budget. So we're not borrowing for this at all, which is fantastic. Okay. Anyone else on anything? No. All right. So I want to be brief, and I don't want anyone to misconstrue anything that I say in any way of being because one of the things about I find with a lot of the, how should I say this, social media in particular, and sometimes other sources of information that they don't get it right, and you know, I'll take the responsibility to say that when we talked, when I was part of the, you know, putting together what we were going to give notice to our residents, I just wanted to say unnecessary watering. You know, what does that mean? I guess that in my mind, that just means that, you know, you have a right to your water, you pay for it. At the same time, we have to understand that we have needs to protect ourselves for firematics and other reasons, if you will. When I say protect ourselves, protect our whole community. So I'll take responsibility for not being more definitive to say, you know, don't rinse your driveway off every morning or wash your car every day. So it's unnecessary outside use of water. Does that mean that you can't water from 7 to 9? No, that doesn't. That's not what that means. It means you can water if you think you need to. If you don't need to water, then please don't. The facts. Let me just give you a couple of a few facts here. So, and I want to start with Rotterdam Junction first. So several years ago, over 10 years ago, we put in a new water tank out there, and it's a 500,000 gallon tank. The peak demands on that system, and that's its own system in Rotterdam Junction. So the regulations or restrictions, if you will, do not have as I should say restrictions don't really apply to Rotterdam Junction because they have a 500,000 gallon tank, and even at peak times, I think that their demand goes to about 400,000 gallons or so a day. They're in good shape there. Now, on our side, if you will, Water 5, which encompasses the vast majority of the town, yes, our May Avenue tank is under painting. I believe the inside is complete. The exterior is still being completed as far as the painting goes. So our hope is to have that tank back in service within a few weeks. Now, does that mean that we won't still have some kind of water restrictions or sprinkling restrictions? No. You know, or yes, I mean, we could have them. So, but at the same time, we have in the past looked at some properties in the western part of town for new water tank locations. We're just not at a point yet where we have made an offer to anyone or cited a particular piece of property. Our engineers that have worked on our water system for the most part have been prime engineers, KB Engineering. I had spoken with them with Mickey Marr probably 4 or 5 months ago, where we started talking about that and bringing that to the fore. So you will see at some point in the near future me saying, hey, I'd like to move forward with a potential purchase of this property, or making some kind of agreement with a property owner for us to site more water storage on the western side of town. Now, one of the things that comes into play also is the discussion about our older water tanks. We have water tanks out there that are 400,000 gallon tanks. To repaint those, to do a lot of work to those tanks, in my opinion, and again, we'll have enough information for us to make an educated decision later in the year and into early next year about what we're going to do. But I think we're better served with more storage and newer storage, if you will, from the perspective of using the best in technology that's out there for water tanks in the western side of town. Rather than put more money into steel tanks, I would like to move forward with the same kind of tank that we have in the junction, which is a glass line tank. Therefore, the interior needs much less maintenance, if anything, at all. So I think we have a lot of choices that we'll be making in the near future. The biggest impact. So when we say drought, I know other communities say different things. And frankly, I think that that what I put out there as far as unnecessary watering, I think got muddled into what other communities are having occurred to them in our area, because it's not the same. What my feeling is that, not feeling, but the data out there, when you think about everybody who's home, including us, most of us are working from our homes. Some of us are going back in and out of the office. There's been a much higher demand earlier in the year on our water than there was in past years. So with that, and coupled with that, our water tank is being completed, that we were just asking for people not to use their water unnecessarily. And that does really lend to firematics more than, in my opinion, than anything else. But the other thing I'll say is that we've had a few very minor service breaks. We haven't had any major breaks, knock on wood, and so everything is moving ahead. So we'll be continuing to make improvements to our water system. Right now, we only have, when I say only, we have about 5.5 million gallons of storage capacity. And so, when we look at what it is we should have and what it is that we, compared to what we currently have, and then we can talk about, in the future about, how do we compare to other municipalities, because that's one of the things that keeps coming up, which also is rather interesting to me, because before anyone compares us to another municipality, I would ask you to first ask them how old their wells are, how many gallons per minute can they pump from their well fields, how much storage do they have, what are their daily demands and peak demands and so on. And I'm going to tell you emphatically that we have probably one of the better systems in the state of New York. And we're going to continue to make improvements to it. We're blessed with a phenomenal water source. And again, I would like to be at a point where we have a minimum, a day's worth of storage capacity for a peak time, because then we would be in great shape. The other thing that we need to do is continue to look at other avenues for funding. And so we'll continue to look at the possibility and potential of grants and low interest loans from the state and so on. So, we're in no dire consequence, no dire need. What we were doing is just trying to be proactive and asking our residents and businesses to basically not, again, unnecessarily use, and I hate to say it like this, but waste our great water. That's it. So I hope that answers the questions. And if any of the board members have any other questions, I'd be happy to.
Mr. Supervisor, I have a quick question. So relative to DEC's requirements for water metering, where's the town at with that? As so it is mandated by DEC. So how does that fit in? Because that I think would play a big part in water conservation. And I disagree. And I'll just say it like that. I don't want to get into really a debate this evening. I don't want to debate. I just wanted to ask, where are we with, what are DEC requirement on metering? I know they have requirements based on the number of wells we have, what we're pulling out of them, what we're selling. So what is the time frame on that, their requirements?
I think the only way I can really answer that question is to tell you at this point that I am not in favor of metering. I also do not believe that there has been an acceptable cost analysis to residents. In other words, by the time you put in the meters here, because of the numbers of meters that we would need, and go back into a position of then activating a new system of attempting to charge our residents and businesses, most businesses are metered, with metering, that metering costs that it would be cost prohibitive, frankly. The cost would definitely increase on residents, definitely increase on businesses. It will
right,
not.
And I get that, but aside from that, what is DEC's requirements of us on this?
The state requires metering. That's a fact. You can read
Okay,
it
that's,
and everything. But now, does that mean that we have to meter? I'm going to tell you that from my perspective, metering is a non-starter.
but the state does require metering, which I'm sure has to do with conservation. So, okay.
I'm going to tell you that. Okay, we can. You know what? We can have a.
No, and I don't want to have the debate. Like I said, I just wanted to ask, where is DEC with this and what are their requirements? So, okay, you answered it. Thank you. Thank you for the explanation on the.
I don't know if it's an explanation, but I just don't. I think that by the time you go through, if we look at other municipalities around us who have gone to purchasing new meters and everything else, all that cost gets placed on the homeowners and the businesses. And frankly, by the time they get it all started and active, the mistakes that are made, everything's electronic. The metering reading is not 100% accurate. And then just as importantly, in my opinion, is that within a handful of years or 10 years or something, you've got to go back out and change those meters again. So all we're doing is increasing the cost to people rather than find other ways to continue to ask them to conserve.
Right, but there's also grant money available if we are upgrading the system to meters as part of their requirements.
But it's not all grant money.
Right, well, it's just like the sewers. I mean, we're getting grant money on the sewers, but we're pushing the cost to the residents on that, and I don't see the difference, so, okay.
I definitely see the difference, but again.
Well, there is. One's inflowing, one's outgoing.
All right, so, thank you. And that has to do with I&I, which we'll talk about another time. So, anyone else have anything this evening that they'd like to bring up on the board?
Mr. Supervisor, I move to adjourn.
Of course. We have a motion for adjournment by Mr. Christou. Is there a second, please?
Who wants it?
I'll take it. I'll second.
Ignore. Okay.
Anyone? Bueller? Anyone?
Okay. Everyone signify by saying aye for adjournment. Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, we have no one in opposition for adjournment. That's always been something we voted on 100% so far, which is fantastic.
Steve, who seconded it? I'm sorry, I didn't hear it.
Ignore did.
Thank you.
The one with the tie. If you could see him there, he's got a nice tie on. He looks fantastic. All right. Thank you all.
Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you all.
Right.
Thank you, Mr. Lanaro.
Good night, everyone.
Stay safe, everyone.
Right.
Recording.